Hello everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, 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 hi. Hello my little raindrops. It's ASMR Rain and welcome to, or welcome back to, my ASMR channel. So, in today's video, I'm going to be reading the first chapter of The Haunting of Hill House. So, as many of you may or may not know, The Haunting of Hill House is a novel and a series on Netflix. If you are more of a reader, I encourage you to read this haunting book. And if you enjoy watching more, then I encourage you to go onto Netflix and watch this spooky tale. But in today's video, we are going to be reading the first chapter of this spooky book. Okay. Also, I'm terribly sorry for any background noise that may arise whilst reading this book. Okay, so this is a little prologue, if you will, an explanation of what occurs in the book. A summary. The Haunting of Hill House. 4 seekers have arrived at the rambling old pile known as Hill House. Dr. Montag, an occult scholar looking for solid evidence of psychic phenomena. Theodora, his lovely light-hearted assistant. Luke, the adventurous future inheritor of the estate. And Eleanor, a friendless, fragile young woman with a dark past. As they begin to cope with chilling, even horrifying occurrences beyond their control or understanding, they cannot possibly know what lies ahead. For Hill House is gathering its powers, and soon it will choose one of them to make its own. One. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under the conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against the hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years, and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there, walked alone. Dr. John Montag was a doctor of philosophy. He had taken his degree in anthropology, feeling obscurely that in this field he might come closest to his true vocation, the analysis of supernatural manifestations. He was scrupulous about the use of his title because, his investigations being so utterly unscientific, he hoped to borrow an air of respectability, even scholarly authority, from his education. It had cost him a good deal in money and in pride, since he was not a begging man, to rent Hill House for 3 months. But he expected absolutely to be compensated for his pains by the sensation following upon the publication of his definitive work on the causes and effects of psychic disturbances in a house is commonly known as haunted. He had been looking for an honestly haunted house all his life. When he heard of Hill House, he had been at first doubtful. inconscientious. He spent considerable time looking for his assistants. He combed the records of the psychic societies, the back files of sensational newspapers, the reports of parapsychologists, and assembled a list of names of people who had, in one way or another, at one time or another, no matter how briefly or dubiously, been involved in abnormal events. From his list, he first eliminated the names of people who were dead. When he had then crossed off the names of those who seemed to him publicity seekers of subnormal intelligence, or unsuitable because of a clear tendency to take the center of the stage, he had a list of perhaps a dozen names. Each of these people then received a letter from Dr. Montag extending an invitation to spend all or part of a summer at a comfortable country house, old but perfectly equipped with plumbing, electricity, central heating, and clean mattresses. The purpose of their stay, the letter stated clearly, was to observe and explore the various unsavory stories which had been circulated about the house for most of its 80 years of existence. Dr. Montag's letters did not say openly that Hill House was haunted, because Dr. Montag was a man of science and until he had actually experienced psychic manifestation in Hill House, he would not trust his luck too far. Consequently, his letters had a certain ambiguous dignity calculated to catch at the imagination of a very special sort of reader. To his dozen letters, Dr. Montag had 4 replies, the other 8 or so candidates having presumably moved on and left no forwarding address, or possibly having lost interest in the supernormal, or even perhaps never having existed at all. To the 4 who replied, Dr. Montag wrote again, naming a specific day when the house would be officially regarded as ready for occupancy and enclosing detailed directions for reaching it, since, as he was forced to explain, information about finding the house was extremely difficult to get, particularly from the rural community which had surrounded it. On the day before he was to leave for Hill House, Dr. Montag was persuaded to take into his select company a representative of the family who owned the house, and a telegram arrived from one of his candidates, backing out with a clearly manufactured excuse. Another never came, nor wrote. Perhaps because of some pressing personal problem which had been intervened. The other 2 came. Yes, that is the first chapter. It is actually quite short. The first 3 chapters, as far as I know, are very brief. So I think I'm going to plan on doing another a chapter of this in a